All right. Hey, everybody. Hey, welcome back to our first bake that we're doing together. So just a little bit of a recap. This morning at about 9:30, we got going on this bake. We started by doing a couple of things. We built the leaven and we also fed our starter. Now that those steps are done and our leaven has had a chance to ferment for about 4 hours now, we're going to go ahead and autolyze our flour. That's just a fancy way of saying we're mixing flour and water together, and that kicks off the enzymatic action that really starts to bring the flavor out of the flour. The other thing this does is by adding water to the flour and just letting it rest for a little bit, it's going to kind of start building some structure. That gluten's going to start to form, and that's really important. It allows us to stretch the dough and work the dough. I'm not going to say knead because this is a pretty wet dough, so we don't actually knead it. We do a lot of folding and stretching of it. Um, and let's see. This also helps, you know, by adding the structure to our dough and our flour, it allows it to expand and to hold on to those bubbles. So as this bakes, it stays nice and light and airy. It doesn't get too dense and too weighted down. So that's what we're after that for this. I'll go ahead and get this process going, and I'll show you guys the levain from earlier. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And then this is going to set for about an hour. Then we'll come back on and do our next step, which is going to be mixing our levain with our autolyzed flour. So let me get some water in here. All right. So for this, we're going to add about 360 grams of water. That's going to give us about a 72% hydration on our dough. Don't worry too much about this yet. We'll get into it in more detail. Just know that I usually shoot for closer to an 80% on the hydration, but it's a lot tougher to work with those doughs. So I think as you guys are beginning to learn how to bake, we'll keep this a little bit lower, around 70, 72%. We have 500 grams of flour here that we weighed out earlier. That's about, let's see, 325 grams of white flour and 175 grams of whole wheat flour. I just kind of like that ratio of white to whole wheat. I just enjoy the bread it makes. Okay, so I also like to point out a milliliter of water weighs about a gram. So if you guys take a look at whatever you're using to measure your water, it's a good way to kind of eyeball it. So this jar here, that's about 400 milliliters. So I'm going to shoot for just a little bit below that, and that should get me about 360 grams of water, which is what I'm looking for. I'm also using the scale to verify that. All right. Ooh, I always overshoot the water. Let's add some of that back. 370 on the money there. Cool. Okay, so we will dump that in here. And let's see, let me grab a spatula. I got this nice wide wooden or plastic spoon with my Instant Pot. I really like it for this mixing because it's just nice and wide and kind of acts like a paddle. So you can use your hands, you can use any wooden spoon you have. Personally, I just like these wider, flatter kind of paddle looking spatulas. So I'll try to get a shot of this flour so you guys can see what's going on. I'm mixing it up. I'm trying to keep the sides scraped down and trying to make sure all the flour in here gets nice and wet. It looks a little shaggy. It looks a little, you know, maybe I don't hit everything, but I'm trying to avoid making sure there's no big pockets of dry flour. So, all right, I'll bring the computer over here and we can take a peek at that. All right, so there's kind of our nice shaggy mess of flour. Like I said, we're gonna let this sit for about 1 hour. And when that is done, we'll come back and mix in our levain. So I'm gonna set the computer back down. And let me go over now and get my Levan. We're going to take a look at this, see what it looks like. Now, all right, this is looking really good. When I started this guy this morning, it was about right here, so it's gone up quite a bit, probably tripled, almost quadrupled in size. Has a really nice yeasty smell to it, just a little sour, but nothing crazy. So this is coming along really nicely. We could start using this right now, but I do need to let this autolyze a little bit longer. So what I'm gonna do is just leave this on the counter for a bit. Earlier I had it in my Instant Pot on that yogurt setting on the lowest setting for yogurt. That creates a really nice environment for fermentation. I think it keeps it around 90 degrees or so. So it's just a nice cozy spot for this starter to ferment in. It's a really nice way to kickstart things, to make things move along a little faster. You can do this, like I said, on the counter overnight. That's a great way to do it if you're doing an overnight leaven build. But today I'm trying to get this done today. So I dropped it in a little bit warmer environment to speed that process up. All right, so we'll see you back in about an hour. We're gonna mix these things together. We're gonna add some salt to this as well. And then we're gonna start our stretching and folding and then keep going on with our bake and our build. So building it today, baking it tomorrow, that's the plan. All right, well, thanks for joining. If you guys have any more questions, please reach out and have a good one.